afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 5th Illustrators panel for the Art Directors Guild.
Hi guys, I'm Tim Burgard.
Oh, how sweet.
I'm Robin Richesson.
I'm Trevor Goring.
I'm Josh Nizzi.
And I'm Mayo. So let's go straight to the art.
Josh, I'd like to start with you and talk to you about your latest project that you worked on. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, the one that was shown up there, or the one I actually just finished working on?
Which do you want to talk about?
I'll talk about Transformers since that was up there.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't get that song out of my head now. I'm gonna be like waking up to that at night. Sorry. Anyway. Yeah.
I didn't write it.
So you just want me to just talk about it generally?
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome working on that project because I was, I think, the first illustrator hired on Transformers 3. I worked on Transformers 2, and so I got to work directly with Michael Bay in the beginning, which is pretty cool. So I got to hear a lot of direction, like, okay, I want this thing to be awesome. I'm a fan. Awesome. I really loved working with Michael Bay, and then Nigel, the production designer, came on, and a lot of other illustrators. It was a really awesome project to work on. I love cars, I love guns, I love machines, robots, all that stuff. So being able to combine that with robots who are kind of like superheroes. It's great.
Transformers is a perfect project for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with my background in video games and 3D art and things like that, it really lends itself to be able, designing robots, being able to use 3D and then 2D on top of it works really well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Trevor, would you like to?
Yeah. For the majority of the year, I've been working on The Dark Tower with Ron Howard, which you probably all know by now. Universal turned down, so we're opening another studio. We'll pick it up, but
I have a feeling that's going to happen.
yeah. But it was working on with Ron was great. He's probably one of the best directors I've worked with that gives really good feedback. He gives you a really good freedom he just gives you the script and you can break down the scenes the way you see them, and then we do an animatics of the scene. So we pretty much did an animatic between myself and some previous companies and two of the storyboard artists. We pretty much did an animatic of the whole movie from January until the beginning of last month. So
Is the animatic the entire film?
nearly, yeah. I mean, the previs was pretty much the really elaborate action scenes, and then we filled in between, and we did all the walk and talk, and we did pretty much the whole script, just to get a feel of the movie. But Universal have got this idea they want to do PG-13 Stephen King, which I don't think really works. And now I'm working on an R-rated movie about an alien invasion with, So, they also turned down Mountains of Madness with Del Toro because they wanted that PG-13. So I don't really know their mindset really, but like Hank says, I'm pretty sure another studio will pick it up because I think the script, though the script gets the flavor of the book, it doesn't follow the book line by line, but it really. Over the 3 films and the 2 series they want to do, I think they'll cover pretty much everything that's in the books.
Okay, Robin, would you like to?
The most recent thing that I have been working on, I did some props and sets for True Blood, which was a lot of fun to do. And then I also, last year, worked on Journey to the Mysterious Island. I didn't bring any stuff from that today. But I also did I Am Number 4. I boarded quite a bit of that film too. So I do that. I also do some costume illustration, and there was some stuff up there from some pilots that unfortunately didn't get picked up, but it's another part of what I do that I really enjoy, mixing the two together, doing costume illustration and a little prop design and storyboards.
Tim?
Well, the last movie that came out was Thor, which I guess everybody here saw. And it's a little strange when the director is somebody as famous as Kenneth Branagh, and working with him, call him Ken, and the downside of that, and I showed the destroyer bits because I worked on the non-powered Thor sequence. It's like, oh, you get to work on Thor, yay! But he's in a t-shirt and blue jeans. Oh no! But as luck would have it, I got hired to work on the the sister project, I guess you might call it, for the movie, which was the video game or the computer game, and I got to do some kick-ass stuff with him, just without the winged helmet and the cape, you know. But it was more like the ultimate version of Thor, which is fine by me. But I got the beginning of next month, Rise of the Apes comes out. And a lot of the stuff that I did is right there in the trailer. When you see apes bounding around and jumping on things and whatever, a lot of that is mine, and I'm really hyper about it. So looking forward to that. Hope to see it.
All of us have touched on the idea that we work with a director before everyone else comes onto the project.
Often it's the director or the production designer, but it's usually a small crew that we begin with. And I'd like each one of you to talk about your experience with whatever director you want to pick and what that physically was like to work that close with someone that important in the process.
It's a little different when you're working with different directors. Personalities and styles of filmmaking really do vary. I mean, you know, it all becomes, you know, a light show on a big white screen in the end. But before that, you know, how people approach how they want to make a movie is, you know, completely different. I work a lot with Roland Emmerich, and I worked on 2012, and I ended up working there a long time, even going to Canada, doing some stuff because, you know, he wants to meet with you, he wants to talk over scenes with you. He has specific ideas for specific shots, but a lot of times what you need to do, really just to cover everybody's ass, the art department, the special effects people, the second unit, stunt people, all of that, you need to do boards that are, that give them coverage, that actually make sense when you look at them frame to frame and cover that amount of time. How they actually end up shooting it, you know, you give them one option, but just giving them that option gives them the abilities to say, okay, we can tweak this, we can do that, and sometimes you see exactly what you put up there. Not often, but you know, at least you're working on something. I spoke to a couple people today, in fact, about shots like for Thor. There was a whole sequence where Thor is on a motorcycle. Did you see that? No, you didn't. But it was a whole sequence that was written, it was plotted, it did this whole thing with Kenneth Branagh. It involved the whole Rube Goldberg thing where the destroyer gets squashed by satellite dishes, and you know, it got boiled down to taking it away from that location, putting it in the town, and having the Warriors 3 fight him, and that whole sequence with the Warriors 3, that's something I worked on with them that actually made it in the movie. And all the work I did, even though it was condensed down to the little bit, helped the movie because the way they had written it, the way they had conceived it, didn't work. Didn't work on paper. It was going to take like 15, 20 more minutes of time. You would have had to take everybody from the town out to the middle of the desert somewhere. It wasn't going to work, and you know, sometimes you prove that, and that's your job, you know. But
Josh, could you expand on that about the projects that work or don't work and your relationship to the director?
Yeah, you know, it's very different depending on the director. You know, sometimes they actually want to talk to you. Sometimes, you know, there needs to be 3 people in between you guys, and you know, maybe don't want to look at them. And, you know, you just don't quite know where you stand. So there's just different personalities. But I think one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily get, you know, when you know, I talk to them and you know, they say, oh, you designed this, you designed that. And, you know, I'm just as surprised when the movie comes out as everybody else in a lot of ways, because things change, and you know, we're a part of the beginning process, and because of effects, because of changes in, you know, budget or whatever, things change. One example I can give is in Transformers, you know, I designed they're called the Wreckers, who are these NASCAR guys, and when we first did them, I kind of really played up this kind of redneck kind of thing, which, to no offense, I mean, I love cars, I love all that stuff, but I myself have a classic car, so not a defense, but because I think it's cool. But then, you know, when they're in the movie, they're NASCAR that they have like
Cockney accents or English accents, something like that. And I was like, what? Like that is not at all what I thought would happen. So that was a surprise. But then there's other things where, you'll spend a day working on some little thing and it's in the movie for like a half hour. Or you'll spend, 2 weeks working on something and it's just off in the background where you don't even see it. So it's definitely a surprise. So I know myself, I'm on the boards, I'm looking at all the websites, all that stuff, trying to get information about films, even though I worked on them. So that is one thing that I think a lot of people don't understand. We don't have all the insights, even though we work on it for a long time.
And Robin, how do you feel?
Working with a whole team of people is a lot of fun. One thing that might be a lot different for those of you who maybe draw and do your own comics and things, that your own work that you do like that, you are the creative controller of that work. And it's all about you and what you think and what you want things to be. And when you're working on a film, you are part of a collaborative team. It's a collaboration between you and a whole bunch of people. And it's exciting and it's fun, but it's definitely challenging because you're constantly really in the service of this thing that's a lot larger than just whatever you think. And but I enjoy it quite a bit, and it is also fun having that one-on-one relationship with the director when you're doing storyboards, or the costume designer when you're doing costumes, or all of those things. Have a lot of fun working with those different people and trying to get their vision out to the rest of the crew. And storytelling is the big thing. That's really what we're all doing.
Trevor, when you worked on 2 projects recently that didn't go, which are 2 huge fan projects, can you talk about your relationship with the director and how the director also responded to the fact that it didn't go?
You mean Dogtown?
Yeah.
Well, originally we just shut down because the Universal wanted to do a script rewrite.
This is Dark Tower?
Yeah. And that was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. So the news that Universal have turned it down, I haven't spoken to the director since that news broke, so I don't really know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm sure that's going to get picked up. But I mean, my experiences with working directors is that every director I work with has a different process. Some directors just give you the scripts and you go away and they don't see it till it's on the screen as an animatic with sound. And then other directors want to see the whole process through roughs and thumbnails. And I worked for Sean Levy last year on Real Steel, which hasn't come out yet, but you've probably seen the trailer. And Sean's a kind of very animated guy and will act out the scenes in front of you. And you have to make notes as fast as you can while he's doing all this stuff. And even to the point where they were doing the motion capture for the robots, they built a ring, and they had 2 stunt guys in the ring fighting like the robots were going to fight to work out the coordination. And he actually put me in the ring with the fighters, and he was in the ring, and he was giving me direction as the guys were like beating the hell out of each other. So I had to make like dodge them and make notes on what they wanted to do storyboards. So once the storyboards were done, then the previs took over, and then it's the whole process that you don't really get involved with, but you're on that initial page of hopefully creating a great scene. So I've got a lot of, the script on Real Steel was really good, and I think it's going to be a great film.
One of the things I would like Trevor's about to touch on that, is that you don't always work with the director on a film. A lot of times you're working with a special effects supervisor, the second unit stunt coordinator, sometimes with the editor. You're there as a resource a lot of the time. You passed around like a doobie at a biker rally, so it's like...
Nice image too.
Yeah, but you get paid, Usually they're nice and gentle.
I remember one of the first action movies I ever worked on was Starship Troopers. So that is going back away. I can remember, I don't work with a few directors at the time, and Paul Verhoeven would get really animated when he was describing scenes. And on that movie, he'd be telling you the scene, and you'd say, okay, and then this happens, and then this, and then this, and he'd say, and then the bugs, and I'd be like, okay, I got it, And he would just get so into it. And then, like Trevor said, sometimes people are just, well, here's the script, take a pass at it, see what you come up with, and then we'll talk. So there's some people who are really removed and people who are really involved.
And some of them are passive when they talk to you, and they say, I want your ideas, I want this, but then after you talk to them a little while, you find out they actually want their ideas, and you're there to just make it happen.
Yeah.
And it runs the entire gamut, they're not just one kind.
Sometimes the writer and the director don't seem to be talking to each other, too.
And you act as a middleman.
I've done many off-road trips off of the script, just, ooh, is this ever going to make it back into actual paper with words on it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So each one of you got into the business probably in a different way. I'm not so much interested in talking about, the nuts and bolts about how you got in the business. Can you tell me the road that led you to it? What in your careers or your life before becoming a storyboard artist, or what made you decide on this direction?
You know what? When I was in college, this was not even close to a career path, really. I mean, the people who worked at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and the instructors were teaching us how to do movie posters, which is kind of like teaching us how to mend buggies, and and fix steam engines and Thompson machine guns or something. I got into this through comic books first, but then into animation, and then storyboarding for animation, then storyboarding for live action commercial spots, with side trips into certain direct-to-video movies, and eventually I got on. Well, we haven't mentioned, being a union member here. I ended up getting eligible for the union on Stargate. I put in my time, and then after I'd gone, the movie became a union signature, and then they said, hey, you're in the union now, you can work in movies. I go, whoa!
I worked in a large number of low-budget films until I amassed enough hours and came to the attention of the union, and I was brought into the union. Each one of us had some experience like that. The union's sort of the way that you've passed that boundary, and you're not going to be, this is your career. So, Trevor, you worked in comics and a number of other things.
I grew up in England, and after I...
Sympathy.
Now I worked on like 2000 AD, in the early issues of 2000 AD, and drew Dan Dare and some of the characters for about 8 years, and then I kind of worked for BBC on a show and kind of drifted into doing advertising, and I kind of was fed up of not making money in comics, and advertising was pretty lucrative, and I just started working for directors doing commercials. Like a lot of directors, like Ridley Scott did 150 commercials before he directed his first feature. I worked on probably 200 commercials before I did my first feature.
So Robin, what's your storytelling history?
I will just say briefly that Trevor, you got back into comics though.
Yeah.
He's got a table out there, you guys. Stop by. He's not going to say it, so I'm going to say it.
He's working on a book. What's the name of the book, Trevor?
Yeah, what's your name? What's your book?
Look how ready he is.
Okay. This book has been, my wife and I have been working on this book for like 6 years, and it's called The Unseen Art of Hollywood. And it's got a history, it's the history of film storyboards. It goes from 1930s to the present day, and it's got like storyboards from about 120 different films. It's going to be published by Hermes Press. It should have been published this year, but I got lazy and spent my time working on comic books and not writing the book. So we're hoping it's going to be out next year.
Yay.
Yay!
Josh, what's your story history?
So growing up, I love video games, I love movies, like Jurassic Park. When that came out, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I saw it probably like 4 times in theaters. And, so I knew I wanted to be a part of somehow, conveying a story, conveying a world, coming up with that. I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like. So I actually started in video games. I worked at a place called Collision. I worked on Red Faction 1 and 2, Punisher. I worked on...
Was that your first love? did you really want to work on video games? Or?
You know, there's so many similarities. I mean, there's a lot of differences, but it's conveying an experience. It's about characters. I mean, I think the good games, they're about, well, there's a lot of different kind of games, but I really enjoy the kind of games where, about where it's conveying characters and experiencing worlds and all these kind of things. I love coming up with that stuff. So yeah, then I worked on some other games, and I was approached to be able to work on the Transformers movie, and I've been doing concept art and 3D stuff for a while. I was like, of course, I would love to be able to do that. So even now I still go back and do stuff in video games from time to time, and it's just I see them being quite similar when it comes to designing things and creating worlds. So.
Robin,
I didn't say. I'm a little different than a lot of these guys in that I did not ever pick up a comic book in my entire childhood.
Yes.
I'm waiting for the rocks to get from, but...
Have you read Betty and Veronica?
No. I must say I did not read comics.
I just loved drawing and painting. I was just spent all my time reading and drawing and painting when I was a kid. And my mom was kind of a closet artist. Like I think always wanted to study art and didn't really get to, because in the 50s she felt like she needed to be a proper housewife and learn to cook and type and sew, and which she did all those things. And she encouraged me, she saw that I liked to do it, and she really encouraged me, and I loved to do it, and I just kept doing it. And how I got into this particular industry was kind of accidental. I got out of college, but I loved life drawing, like beyond everything. I loved drawing the figure, I loved drawing humans, I loved, being able to manipulate and draw humans moving through space. And David Lowry, who I went to school with at Cal State Long Beach, who's a great storyboard artist. We went to school together, and we were in life drawing together, and when we got out of school, he knew he wanted to do storyboards. I really didn't have any idea what storyboards were. And he ran off, and it took him a few years to get into it, but when he did, he, called back to me and was like, you need to come and do this, you need to come and do this. And I thought, man, that just sounds like a drag, sitting in some little trailer with a light over your, hunched over like this, doing hundreds of little drawings. And I would go visit him, and that's essentially what he would be doing. And I was just thinking, this seems like grueling. And then he just kind of kept telling me I should be doing it. And finally he just started sending me clients. And I was starving. I was out there trying to do all this other kinds of illustration and really not making a lot of money. And I just started taking the jobs, okay, let me try it. And I loved it. Like, it was weird. It was like
Well, you said that you were involved in you read a great deal as a child. Too.
Yeah, I read a lot.
So storytelling was part of your work.
Yeah, stories I loved, and drawing I loved, and I think it ended up, I didn't realize the connection there with film, really, when I was a kid. And then when he sort of got me into doing this, I really loved it. And I feel so lucky that I've had the life that I've had in this industry. And it was a surprise, because I certainly didn't expect it.
And Dave would be here, but he's in Detroit working on Wizard of Oz with Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi's Oz.
You get to travel a little bit, You can get to travel to Detroit now. Used to be exotic places.
Yes.
We're waiting for, Omaha next.
I used to live in Omaha.
Yeah, okay.
How much have you seen the industry change, Tim?
There's a lot of things that are changing now. I mean, honestly, I started when the most sophisticated piece of office equipment was the Xerox copier. And, you ended up, I think I got as far as I did so quick because I knew how to draw and ink like a comic book guy, and my storyboard artist could withstand multiple generations of copy machine, degradation, where you could still read what's going on, whereas some guys were working in pencil, and after one copy off of another copy, all you're looking at is gray blobs. So I think people liked hiring me for that.
Do
Well,
any
it's
of
funny,
you?
because I can remember getting so excited about Xerox machines when they first came out.
No, I'm serious. I mean, that sounds crazy. I talk about how, I impress
All of the young people I work with about, well, yeah, we didn't have computers, did everything by hand, and now I think about it, we didn't even have Xerox, like when I first, we did, by the time I was doing storyboards, we did, but just barely. Really, it was probably like 5 years old.
How many of you are working analog still? Are all of you digital now?
I'm at least partially digital. Just a little quick, work tip from what I'm doing. I draw with pencil and paper, at a comfortable size, which is actually fairly small. 8.5 by 11 paper, maybe 4 panels per page. And before, when I had to make sure, that the lines were dark, or I had to go in with markers or something to darken them up. Now all I have to do is scan what I've got and darken them up in Photoshop, and they look great. And if I want to drop in a little bit of tone and stuff, it's easy peasy, as the British say, right?
Some do.
I use both. Pencil and
Yeah,
computer.
I still use. I'm still pretty much traditional. I like Tim.
100%?
No, I clean up like Tim in Photoshop. I do have a Cintiq, but I'm just so much slower working on a Cintiq than just working traditionally. So I just find it a lot easier to just draw and scan and clean up in Photoshop.
What about you, Josh?
All digital. Yeah, as I mentioned before, and I think as far as illustrators, I don't think I've ever seen anyone not use digital. And I think the more ZBrush, 3D Studio Max, whatever programs you can use that make you faster and better, better quality, helps people. So.
You got to see these guys, the total digital guys in the art department. They look like they're in NASA control. They have like 3 screens, and bizarre, you don't want to disturb them, or else, like a bomb will go off or something.
I think we should open it up for questions at this point, if anyone wants to. Yep.
Oh, we have a mic. We have a roving mic.
Here. If anyone has any questions.
Kind of a man on the street thing. Oh, they're all the way up here.
Sandro?
Either that or he's trying to escape. What is it? Oh, okay.
Give the microphone.
And no questions about how long until a Batman panel starts.
You're not getting on it anyway. They've already aligned out there.
I was just wondering any advice you might have for up-and-coming illustrators.
When we give advice like that, I'd like to do it at the autograph session afterward, but
A light commentary about that is always good, but each artist your work is very specific to you, and what the information you need will be very specific to what you need to be able to do that. And giving out, I found in these panels that by giving out broad pieces of information, you're actually not giving people what they really need to look at. So we'll look at your work later and talk to you more about it. But anybody want to add a little bit to that?
Well, just the beginning. Obviously, you need to know the basics. I usually say when I'm doing, a talk at a storyboarding class, that you need to be able to do recognizable objects, or basic figures, human figures, and you need to know perspective. You need to understand that, because part of this whole thing, because we're working with a film media, you have to understand how lenses work, and you don't want to be doing Jack Kirby type style things where your hand is going to take up the major portion of the storyboard panel. If we're working with a long lens and everything's going to be contracted, you have to understand basic perspective, so that, like even just regular 1-point perspective, whatever, you need to be able to understand what's going on in the panel.
And I'd go further than that and say that you need to be able to understand how to tell a story. That all the methods that they use, not all the methods for telling a story in a comic book, are methods that are possible to use in a film. So when Tim says that about knowing your lenses, it's fundamentally important. that if you're going to put somebody, you know, a fist fight between a very small velociraptor and a human being in a car, you need to be able to realize that they're not going to be able to shoot every possible angle just because you can draw it. It's more important you be able to give them something that they can shoot with the cameras that they have at that moment in time. But you also need to make it exciting, and you need to make it something that they care about. And if you can't go further than just good drawing, if all you do is good drawing, you're never going to be able to move forward. So storytelling is much more important than just being able to draw a nice looking figure and pretty fingernails.
Can I quickly add something?
Yes.
From a concept art point of view, I would say just practice as much as you possibly can. And I would post stuff on forums, you know, where people are going to be brutally honest with you, because you need to get used to people saying that stinks, or, you know, whatever it is, because that's going to happen. You have to get that disconnect to really, you know, elevate yourself. And that's, I mean, that's what's going to happen.
And if you don't, the director will do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to be able to deal with that and be happy giving him what he wants, even though you may think it's totally stupid.
And one of the easiest things you can do to learn about storytelling is to turn the sound off and watch the movie silent, and you'll be way more aware of the shots and the way the camera moves.
The way camera moves, yeah. I totally second that. That's really a simple thing to do. And then you start to really notice how a story is built,
Yeah.
you know, in the movie by looking at the editing.
It sounds great, but it's very distracting.
It's emotionally distracting.
Yeah.
With the modern technology too, it's possible for you to shoot film now, and just on your phone or any of the devices that are available. And you should start doing it if you're really serious about it, because it'll teach you very rapidly what you can and can't do.
I would say just one more thing, and that is keep yourself open to possibility for everybody, because you know, you never know where the job's coming from. You have no clue where the job's coming from. That means every place that you see an opportunity to do some good work that could maybe get you another job, do it. And keep your mind open.
Thank you. This is a question for Josh. If you do the concept art for a character, say on the Transformers, do you get a piece of the merchandising, or are the rights?
That hurts you even ask. No, nope. Hey, I got a T-shirt in a bag. It was so cool. It was super cool. No, you know, we
You
get
got that hat he's wearing.
you know, we get paid well, but we get nope. But if you want to start writing emails and try and kind of raise awareness of that, you know, that would be fine.
We'll take money if it's given.
Yeah.
So I'm an upcoming filmmaker, which is another way to say a no-budget filmmaker. And essentially, so we have a student feature we're doing essentially, and we need concept art. So here's the challenge: we can't afford, would love to, of course, but can't afford somebody of your stature. Where could I find, where could other upcoming filmmakers find upcoming artists, art directors, future future storyboard and concept artists that are looking to build up their experiences so that one day the guild will come knocking, perhaps?
The first guy that asked the question, talk to him.
Yeah, in this room probably is where you'll find
They're
them.
there? Yeah.
They're here today.
Yeah, I would recommend some forums, conceptart.org, CG Hub. There's a number of them out there.
There are a number of people out there that are hungry and willing
Yeah.
to
That's what I usually recommend to people who ask me that question, how do I get my first jobs in this stuff? And I said, look for guys like you. Go over to
Yeah.
AFI. Go,
Really?
you know, hook up with student
Exactly.
filmmakers.
The internet is
Go to
really
the art
amazing
department.
resource for them.
Go to the art department at the school and start talking to people.
We're in our last 5 minutes, so.
Hi, my name's Don, and I'm an artist, illustrator, and my question is it might seem a little silly to you guys, but I'm just curious, how would I submit like a portfolio to who or to where I should submit it? Like the artist director or just a general, like, do you guys have any?
You wouldn't do it at this level. You'd find the other person who's looking to make films. So, and the two of you would then start making films, because having examples of films that were actually made are the best way to show people. Don't show them art samples. Show them things that show that you know how to make film and you care about making film. That's what they're interested in seeing. They're not interested in seeing drawings.
I will give you a little hint. If you feel like you're ready to jump into the job pool, you might want to submit samples to agents who represent artists in the business. There are many of them, Famous Frames, Storyboards Inc., that at first they may only represent you for commercials, but that's storyboarding for live film, so why not, you know? And there are no restrictions except for just getting hired for that.
I did commercials for 10 years before I ever got in the film union.
You have to build your chops somewhere along the way. And enthusiasm, and actually, you have to also find out if you really like doing this, because you're going to be doing it for long hours. There's going to be good and bad about it. And if you really don't want to do it and you don't really like it, you're going to learn that very quickly. And
You know, that hunching over the table in the room for hours, that's not a lie. I mean, it's true. It really is what you spend your time doing. But you find out if you, like Hank said, you find out if you like that or not.
you have to want to do this. And I see a lot of people that they like the idea of seeing their name up in lights, but they don't really like to do the work involved to put their name in lights. And almost everybody I think on this panel believes as much in the process as much as they believe in the finished product.
Yeah, and you could do all the work and you may not see your name in lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Or if you do, it's way down below.
We know.
Yeah.
I'm an art student, and I wanted to ask, as can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As professionals, I wanted to ask, are there times when you get art block on the job, and how do you usually overcome that art block? You're just completely stumped, and you can't really come up with let's say what the directors are asking for. Do you have like a process that you go through, or do you just keep drawing?
Yeah, it's not the same as writer's block. I mean, if they're actually telling you what they want, you know, I got this car, I want it to crash into a wall, and I want this headless body to go through, you know. It's like you draw that.
And if you can't find, when you get up in the morning and the director says, I want this, this car to crash into a wall in a cool way, and you can't find a way to do that, it's very easy now to look at other movies and say, who did a cool crash? And you think, the most important thing is once you've decided who did a cool crash, how can I do it so it doesn't look like their cool crash? And that really does break the block.
Let's say the director is giving you all of these ideas or these feedback, and for some reason you just can't please them. Like, how would you?
You're going to run into assholes. What are you going to do? Some guys are never going to be pleased.
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit because for me, as an illustrator, on every concept guys. It seems like on every project I have one thing that just I cannot get right. Since I'm talking so much about Transformers, in Transformers, you know, if you saw the movie, there's a part where he uses this glove with like a little grapple thing on it. So I designed that. That thing took me so long, and I just could not get it to be cool. I could not get it so. Like that, I had all these revisions on. I'm like, I am a terrible artist. I cannot do this. But then you have other things like Shockwave. I did that like in a day. You know, so you just don't know like how it's going to work. You know, it's a creative thing. But ultimately, you know, I have a wife and kids I got to feed, so I got to get things done.
Right. I was going to say they don't really let you have a block. But how did you design your grapple thing? I mean, what did you just keep doing it, or how did you solve your problem with that?
Well, there was a lot of back and forth, and you know, with that one specifically, a lot of the issues had to do because there were a lot of people involved. There was, you know, the CG guys, there was the practical prop guys, there was, you know, so everyone kind of had a input on it, and I could not solve the problem and make it look cool. But eventually, basically, I don't know if they just got worn out or what happened, because you know, I think at some point they're like, make these changes, and I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And then they're like, you know what? No, it's good. What's that?
You wear them down.
Yeah, wear them down.
Thank everyone for having attended this. And we're now all moving to sign autographs and talk to you individually in section AA1. And you can follow us, or we'll give you directions, or there's some maps that will show you where AA1 is. And that's what we'll go to immediately afterward. So thank you all for being here today.
My problem is I'm coming up from such a big experience. You know, we have to go with who we get, and some venues, some custom language is up there.
Yeah.